I want to talk about the importance of setting boundaries. I was probably 36 years old when the Lord started preparing me, setting me up, and preparing me to make boundaries. Because of the traumas that I had when at a younger age, growing up into my youth, in reference to falling short to what people expected of me, specifically my mother. Because of these traumas, I went throughout life constantly trying to please others. I didn't want to let people down because of this trauma. And I had no idea that this was a part of that until God brought me forth. God surfaced these traumas and started to heal me. A lot of the times we don't realize why we are triggered by certain things or why we act in certain ways until it's the time for healing and God surfaces the things that we're dealing with, the things that we've been dealing with, and many of us who for years have suppressed, whether by activities, by drugs, by whatever it is. So God brought me all the way back after years of change and surrender to his will. 6 years, 2 years ago, I came back to my mom's house to help with my grandma who had been diagnosed with dementia. So that is 8 years into my walk with God. Then he brings me back to the house, not specifically the house, but the place in where the traumas, many of my traumas started. So in this atmosphere, in the presence of the one that I always wanted to please, but never could, at least in those years of my life, because I didn't have the capacity to. I was in darkness. I was living in the way of the world. How could you possibly? And so he brought me back around full circle to my mom's house, and then puts me in this place to start making boundaries. And if you think about it, it's quite funny now, but it was actually a very difficult thing to do, because I came back face to face to the trauma. I'm facing the trauma, the wound itself that had caused so much in my life. And so here I am in this house, and the Lord begins to help me step by step each day, letting me know, guiding me where to place a boundary, how to communicate in making these boundaries. And so little by little, very subtly, each day, as times would go by, something would happen, a situation would come forth, and I would literally, moment by moment, situation by situation, I would have to ask for help, because I had never placed boundaries. It was so difficult for me to say no. It was this repeated thing of constantly not wanting to let people down, constantly wanting to please people to the best of my ability. It was this performance mentality. I needed to perform that I could please that person, and second, that I wouldn't let them down. So it's a double-sided thing. And it went in every area of my life, even when I was on the streets and I was doing these activities for a specific neighborhood, constantly wanting to please them, putting myself in situations it surfaced, it faced in every area of my life. So here I am 2 years ago, and the Lord begins to take me through this season. And some people wonder and they have questions about some of the things that we're talking about on this channel, right? Some of the healing and stuff that God is doing. But I have to emphasize that it's very intimate. God gives specific instructions for each of us in different seasons of our life. And if this is something that he is already stirring up in you, then he will beautifully lead you. And it's really important that we seek his direction and instruction, especially in these difficult places of healing, because I can smile about it now because I see the victory. I'm at the end of it. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing that I went through with my mom. And we've actually grown closer and we've healed together through many things. This is just one that I'm talking about right now, which is making boundaries. And it's very important that you also, that you face, that you are led by God in the specific area, whatever it is that he's brought to surface, that you would begin to heal in, because they're hard. When you're facing these traumas that many times we forget or suppress for years and years and years, we don't realize how deep the wound is. So it's very difficult. And so as the 2 years went on, not only did I learn to begin to make boundaries in this specific area, but I learned to make boundaries in every area. See, I had to come into this place of acceptance. And I also needed to realize who and understand and believe who God said that I was. And so when I started to believe him and I started to believe that I was truly loved, these changes within me, it's something within me began to stand up for myself, because God was giving me this confidence. My identity was found in God. And so I began to have this confidence, and I already had the desire to, let me let the dog in. I already had the desire to surrender to him. So that was already part of my life. My life was surrendering and resurrendering continually to God. So this was something difficult, specific, but beautiful. And we begin to see the overflow in every area of your life. See, a lot of times we hear in religion that we can't have our eyes on ourselves. It shouldn't be about self. And see, there's a very fine line. The more that God showers us with love, specifically, let me speak about myself, because I had issues with love. I was emotionally neglected with love. I didn't have that emotional love growing up. I had a mother who provided faithfully and unwavering for her kids. And so the emotional side of things it's huge. It's just as important as the providing side of things. So as I began to heal through making these boundaries, I began to see myself rightly. And this continues to happen as we heal. As you are healed from these traumas and these wounds, you begin to see clearly. You begin to see little by little what God sees. You begin to have this confidence. And it's not a selfish confidence, it's a selfless confidence. But it's also confidence in who you are and whose you are. I wanted to share this video because I had someone on the channel who asked, how did you do it? What did you do to help you begin to relieve yourself from stress? And one of the things that I did that God helped me through was I began to make boundaries. This helped me in every area of my life. I wasn't overworking myself. I wasn't overdoing myself. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. Occasionally it would come out and I was aware of it. So I brought myself back and I was able to again stand and try it again. And this doesn't remove, because I battled this, like, okay, when is the right time to act in serving, right? And God really had to help me with this balance, because my entire life I was constantly serving, trying to please others, and there was nothing left for me. And so this was really difficult for me in the beginning. I almost didn't think that it was right. I sensed almost that every time I made a boundary, I almost felt like I was doing something wrong. But this is the process, the renewing of your mind. When something is surfaced that God wants to heal, it won't seem right. The goodness and the love of God overflows into our life. It doesn't seem right sometimes for those of us that lacked that emotional love, those emotional touch, that emotional way of that ultimately God showed me. How can we truly love another if we are wounded in this area of love? So I wanted to share that because there was a sister who was asking about this. And one of the greatest things, as I thought back on your question, I thought back and it was boundaries. Surrendering to the will of God, surrendering to what He has brought to your life right now, surrendering to whatever situation you're facing right now. And specifically in this, learning to be unoffended in every way, helped with surrender, boundaries. Surrendering, resurrendering continually, redirecting yourself back. This is a renewing of the mind process. And subtle changes begin to happen. And you look back, God will have you look back sometimes, look at how far you've come. And every single time that it happens, I can't believe how far we've come together. We, God and myself. God bless you.